Okay, so I want to talk about Joe Rogan. I'm sure you've probably heard last week the rocker Neil Young pulled his music from Spotify, which is the world's largest streaming music service by in terms of subscribers by a long way. Over the objections that Joe Rogan was basically made is Joe Rogan's podcast is bringing on guests who are making false claims about the COVID-19 vaccines. Um, and I want to share with you three things that I wrote down that I was thinking about as I was reading this whole story and that I've been reflecting on, and I hope in some way can add value to the quality of your life. By the way, welcome back again to my channel. I'm Kasim. I hope you're doing all right. I hope your family's all right. I hope you're keeping healthy and everything is good in your life. But before I get into that, if you want to help me and support me get to 1,000 subscribers by June, please can you like and subscribe to my channel? You will be an absolute legend. Okay, cool. So let's go through these three things that I wrote down regarding this whole situation that I've been reflecting on. And as I said, these are not necessarily anything that you've never really thought about. These are just things for you to maybe reflect on and jog your memory or whatever it may be for you, whatever it may bring up for you, just to think about. But we can have a dialogue, we can have a conversation. So the first thing that I wrote down here is that the more successful you become, the more you are used. I wrote this down because, look, when Joe Rogan started his podcast, he started his podcast basically just speaking to people, right? If you look at many different aspects of a life, whether it be like Amazon, when Amazon first started opening Amazon, and it was originally just selling books, that's all it was. But now Amazon has become so big that it's got to a point where it's almost unmanageable. When Google first started off, Google was a certain search engine and simply had information. But obviously, Google now has diversified and has become much bigger than what it originally began out to be. And I guess one of the things that I want to articulate to you that as you become more successful and as you touch different aspects of humanity, of life, of different sectors, what's going to end up happening is that you're going to be used. You're going to be a pawn, right? People are going to have their own different agendas in trying to use you so that they can leverage their success, so that they can get their agenda out there. Like for example, if you think about people like Joe Rogan, each episode of Joe Rogan, from what I was reading, gets about 11 million people listening to it. That's obviously a huge amount of people. And there's going to be a lot of people who are going to try to use Joe Rogan's podcast to try and articulate a certain message, a certain agenda. Now, Joe Rogan is quite good in that Joe Rogan actually is a very balanced kind of person. But what I would share with you is that as you become more and more and more successful, you need to really figure out for yourself, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? What is important to you? Yeah. What will you say no to? And obviously, like, I'm talking about this as a general rule, but you can really extend the definition of what I'm talking about here in like areas like your relationship, right? And I'm going slightly off topic here, but I think this is really important. Like, if you look at your relationship, like, as your relationship begins to develop and it begins to expand and it begins to become, you begin to move into the different stages of your relationship, you want to ask yourself and define for yourself, what is too far? What would be the cutoff? If my partner did this, when would it be too much for me? Now, I say this to you because a lot of people end up in situations, both in relationships and both in terms of their careers, where they've gone too far. There's some people, for example, who are like musicians who end up getting into music, or comedians who end up needing alcohol, right? In order for them to perform at their very best, they need to have a couple of beers or they need to have a shot of tequila. But what ends up happening is, as they become more and more and more and more successful and the pressure and the anxiety amplifies, success simply amplifies everything. So what ends up happening is that the drinking habit gets out of control because they're doing more shows, the pressure on them is higher, so they're ending up drinking more and more and more. And I guess for you, it's something that I was thinking about for me as Kasim, and it's something that I persuade you and I encourage you to think about in your own life. Like, because at the moment you don't even realize where your success is going to take you and the consequences that it's going to have on your life. And at the moment, you don't even realize that. And you're going to be so used by people. The amount of people who become successful and people try to get tickets off them. They try to use a story about them. Like, these things are going to happen, and you need to know like what boundaries you're going to have around you. What is too far? What isn't too far? You may be financially successful, but you have to keep some things away from your family, because the problem might not be necessarily your spouse or your family. Like, for example, one of the things that I tell people is that if your partner is really, let's say you're a woman and you find a man and he's really wealthy, one of the things that you're going to have to do is keep it from your family. You have to tell you can't be disclosing to your family, I mean your mum, your sister, your brother, your cousins, how much money your partner actually earns, because you put them in a very vulnerable situation. Because it may not, because if you tell it to your sister or your mum might tell it to her best friend might tell it to a cousin, that cousin all of a sudden talks to somebody else who is actually really desperate, and then all of a sudden your house is being burgled, and you have no idea why your house is being burgled, how they even gained access, but all of that was a result of you talking about this. And so there has to be some boundaries that you have to set for yourself. There has to be an understanding that as you become more successful, as you move up in terms of life, in terms of relationships, you're going to be used, right? There's going to be people who are going to use your relationship in your community because you guys are doing really well to try to pull you guys down. And that's something that you have to really think about in your life, and you may never have actually ever thought about that. So that's what I was reflecting. I was just reflecting as I was listening to Joe Rogan. I'm listening to this whole story. I thought, God damn it, this guy's got to a position where Joe Rogan, when he was no one, nobody gave a shit, right? But now he's got to a point where he actually influences people. That he's got to a point now where he's become dangerous. Dangerous in terms of that people can use him for their own agenda, but also people are going to try to stop him because they think he's a threat. The second thing that I wrote down here is that people don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear their truth. And it's so true, right? We're living in a world, right, where I've just noticed people don't really want to hear my point of view. People aren't really interested. People want to hear their point of view reaffirmed to them by people who are like them, right? People who believe in the left want to only speak to people who are on the left. People who are into feminism or whose life is surrounded is built on a paradigm of feminism and that belief system only want to associate with people who believe in feminism. And anybody who opposes them, anybody who doesn't believe that, is either a direct threat to what they believe or they're not interested. We're not raising both ourselves, our children, people within our community to have the belief system of being able to co-work and kind of live in a community with people who are from different facets of life, who have different belief systems. And I think it's really, really important that, I say to people that if you are over the age of 25 today, you are the adults. You are the adults. Yes, we may have parents who are obviously older than us in their 50s and 60s, but ultimately we are now the adults. The people who are going to set the standard for relationships, for working hours, for how women should be treated, for how the family units looks, is those of us who are over the age of kind of 25 years of age. And so we have to really be cognizant of the decisions we're making, our belief system, the way in which we're interacting with other people. And one of the things is that if we want to make good leaders and we're going to be bosses and managers and regional managers and husbands and wives, we have to think about the fact that there's going to be people who are going to be looking at us and basically looking to cues as to what is normal, what is good and what is bad. And I say this because some of us don't even recognize that some of the belief system that we have is faulty. That we are only tunneled in one way, beliefs in one way and one belief system and one paradigm, and we will not allow anybody to challenge our belief system. We don't realize that there's a difference between the truth and a truth, right? The truth is like the law of gravity. You go on top of a building, you jump off it, you're never going to go up. It doesn't matter whether you're black, white, young, old, you're from China, you're from Egypt. If you go on the top of a building and you jump off it, you're going to always go down. A truth is your point of view and it's my point of view. And I think we're living in this world where many of us don't realize that what we believe to be the truth is actually a truth. And what we don't understand is that if anybody is opposing what you say, that basically means that in some way or another, it is either going to be interpreted as a truth or the truth. And that's really important for us to look at that and examine that and say, well, I don't know, why is this person saying this? Because you might be wrong and you don't even realize it. I don't know, that's the second thing that I was thinking about. The last thing that I wrote down here is don't hide from things. The thing that I love about Joe Rogan is that Joe Rogan faces things on. Joe Rogan really attacks things. Instead of hiding and denying things are happening, Joe Rogan faced this heads on. And I really like that. And it's something that I'm trying to, myself as Kasim, imbue, because, I think there's a lot of us guys and women who are avoiding taking on responsibility. We don't want to have a political viewpoint. We don't want to have a philosophy about raising children. We don't want to have a philosophy about leadership. We try to basically tiptoe our way through life and not engage in life. And there's a saying that, don't quote me on this, which goes something on the lines of this: bad things happen when good people stay silent. It's something on those lines, and it's very true. One of my problems at the moment, and it's something that I've been trying to figure out a way around, is if you go on the internet, there's a lot of shows where the women are being interviewed about what they want from men, what they expect from men, and many of these women are saying crazy things like men are just to be used and men are nothing and men are not important, right? And that isn't a very wise philosophy to hold. And there are wise women who hold better philosophies than that. The issue is these women are not coming up and going on these podcasts and speaking. And I get it, because part of it is, if you're a wise woman, you're busy, right? You're working on your relationship, you're working on your kids, you're trying to better your life. You don't have time to be going on freaking podcasts, dressed half naked and talking absolute nonsense. You're focusing on your life. But the issue is that our younger children who are exposing themselves to this stuff, that is the ideology which they're bringing themselves up on, right? They're not bringing themselves up on the ideology that you speak to them in the house, because a lot of the time we're not there, we're busy, whatever. All they see all the time is this ideology. And many of us later on in like 10 years, we're going to be wondering, where did our kids go wrong? Why are they struggling? And it's going to be the fact that we were not the dominant influence in terms of their philosophy about relationships. And they did not have a balanced viewpoint so that they knew what was right and what was wrong, and what were the extremes and what were the normalities, right? The average. I said in a comment recently that we're living in a world today which is being corrupted by a fog where people don't understand the difference between extremes, the right and the left, or the normal. People don't know what is normal anymore. Right? People don't know what is an extreme anymore, because everything is foggy, everything is blurred into each other. And I think it's just really important that as people, me and you, because we all live in communities, right? That we have a stand on stuff. What is the role of a man? What is the role of a woman? And what is your philosophy for leadership? What is it mean to be a good person? I think it's really important that you have this stand, because when the time comes, you need to be able to step forward and boldly defend it. The issue is you can't defend something that you don't believe in, that you don't know, that you've never really thought about. And there are some things that are really important, like political things, social things, economic things, that a lot of people just have no clue about, they have no understanding of, and people are making decisions on their behalf which are not good. So that's what I was thinking about, and I don't know, maybe you disagree with me, maybe you agree with me, but I would love to sort of hear your thoughts. We could have a dialogue about this. So comment below, send me a message. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Also, if you want to help me get to 1,000 subscribers by June, you know what to do. Please, can you like and subscribe to my channel? You'd be an absolute legend. Right, okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.